Ready? All right, afternoon, everybody. The time is 1:30 p.m., and I hereby call the July 13th, 2022 meeting of the Area Board of Zoning and Appeals into order. We have 7 members present, which is awesome. The Area Board of Zoning and Appeals meeting is being held in person and virtually in the 4th floor council chambers of the County City Building with Zoom and video phone teleconferencing options available as posted on our website at sjcindiana.com/agenda center. If you want to join virtually, the call-in number is 312-626-6799. The meeting ID is 961-6443-3903. The password is 543186. Regarding a public comment, we will first ask for any public comment from those sitting in the chambers and then call on the members of the public attending remotely. If a member of the public attending remotely wishes to participate in the public comment portion of the meeting, they should indicate this by the raise hand function in Zoom and/or by messaging the host in the chat function. Please clearly state your name, address for the record. We ask that board members state their name when making a motion and a second. Lastly, please silence your cell phones so they do not disturb the meeting. Morgan, can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Hawley,
Present.
Mr. Moffett,
Here.
Mr. Ritzma,
Here.
Mr. Roush,
Here.
Mr. Schaefer,
Here.
Mr. Vellman,
Here.
and Mr. Tavener.
Here. All right, can we have the petition 1, please?
The location is 18325 Bailey Avenue, also known as 54196 Burdette Street. Lots 263, 264, and 265 Hepler's Morningside Addition and unaddressed abutting property to the east. Lot 266, Hepler's Morningside Addition. Owner is Little Flower Ventures, LLC. Requested action variance 1 from section 154.107B to allow a lot width of 53 feet where 60 feet is required for lots with public water and sewer. Zoning is R single family district county.
Yeah, this is Sean Klein, Area Plan Commission staff with offices on the 11th floor of this building. I just want to give a quick update on the history of this one. So this petition was tabled at the request of the petitioner for the February, March, April, May, and June meetings of the Area Board of Zoning Appeals. Originally, there was a second variance, with this request, that being from to allow a side yard setback of 5 feet where 6 feet is required. The petitioner has long since withdrawn that variance request, so what is before you today is just the lot width variance from the 60 feet required to the 53 feet. At the January 2022 meeting, the board requested that the petitioner propose a set of written commitments to address the neighborhood's concerns relating to student housing, rental housing, and potential disruptive activity in the neighborhood as a result of the development. The petitioner has supplied written commitments, which I believe you have a copy of to look over again. On July 8th, 2020, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals denied 2 variances for a similar proposal at this property, those being from the minimum required lot width of 60 feet to 40 feet, and from the minimum required side setback of 6 to 4 feet. The current variance before you, as I mentioned, is just the lot width one from 60 to 53, which is less of a lot width reduction than was proposed in August 2020. The previous variance request would have permitted 7 lots to be developed here. The current request will result in 6 lots. By right, this property, which is the 2 parcels owned by Little Flower Ventures, could be developed into 5 lots. So the variance would allow for 1 additional single-family lot. When you look at the entire frontage for the block face between Burdette and Willis, you have 612 feet of road frontage. So if this had been developed differently, without the larger lots to the west and to the east, there actually could have been 10 60-foot lots along the street. So since the variance request will result in 9 total, it's not really necessarily an increase in density from what would have been permitted by right had they developed with sewer and water to the smallest lots that would have been possible under the current zoning ordinance. The proposed development will be served by municipal water and sewer from the city of South Bend. Staff recommends approval of the requested variances, subject to a condition that sidewalks are provided. When you turn to the state law criteria, we find that the approval will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. It will not likely be injurious to these things because it is single-family residential, and the Morningside plan calls for predominantly single-family uses in sub-area 4, which is where this subject property is located. We find that the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner, because the proposed density is not dramatically different than the density of the original plat. Once again, if they had developed the entire block face with 60-foot lots, you would be looking at 10 single-family homes. The result of this variance would be 9 single-family homes in the same area. So it's not really an increase in density beyond what is permitted by right. The strict applications of the terms of this chapter would result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. The original plat, as laid out, had lot sizes ranging from 40 feet, 80 feet, 132 feet. If approved, the proposed development would result in 8 total zoning lots on this half lot, or this half block rather. Density along this block would be consistent with what is allowed by right under the zoning ordinance elsewhere within this same subdivision. And I would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Before, Abby Wiles, Director for APC, before we dive into any questions, I just wanted to note that I did receive a call prior to the meeting from one of the petitioners, one of the parties of the partnership, stating that they wouldn't agree to any concessions or requirements established by the board as part of the approval. That person is on and can answer questions during the petitioner portion of the presentation, but in talking with Brandy here, just wanted to note that for all of you, since I did receive the call prior to the meeting.
That wouldn't necessarily affect what you guys do, because you have the authority to impose commitments as part of as a condition of approval if you choose to do so. But we felt like disclosing it was appropriate. So.
Okay. You guys got any questions?
So I'm not questioning your math, I'm just questioning your math. So if I look at these lots, I don't see how I can get 10 in that block, I guess. So the existing 3 lots to the east of what they're talking about, are those not 60-foot lots? Are those wider than 60 feet?
They are wider
Okay.
than 60 feet. Yeah,
So-
so it's 612 in total.
Okay.
So
That's what I want to clarify.
glad it worked out.
Okay.
Anybody else? All right, is the petitioner present? So you got 10 minutes. Name and address, please.
I'll try not to use all 10 minutes. Thank you. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, good afternoon. My name is James A. Masters of the law firm Nemeth Feeney Masters in Campidi. Our office address is 350 Columbia Street, South Bend, zip code 46601, located here in downtown in the River Glen Office Park. I'm here today to speak on behalf of the petitioner, Little Flower Ventures, and its principals, Brian and Sharon Gofrida. The petitioner is requesting a variance from the 60-foot frontage to 53 feet of frontage to construct 6 single-family homes. There was an earlier request to reduce the size of the side yards from 6 feet to 5 feet. That has been withdrawn as an accommodation to the Clay Township Fire Marshal's concerns. The requested variance will reduce the required frontage by about 10%. The last public hearing on this petition was held on January 12. At that time, so much of the opposition and even some of the members of this board were concerned and focused on the mistaken belief that the project would be used for student rentals. I suggest it's important to bring focus back to what the petitioner has requested and how this fits into the legal framework for a variance. The variance is requested to allow the construction of 6 single-family homes. The petitioner can build 5 single-family homes on the same site without having to obtain a variance and without any restrictions. But because the cost to run the city sewer line 1,000 feet to the site is $500,000 to $600,000, building the 6th house will help pay the high cost to install the infrastructure needed for this project, which the petitioner alone will pay. And having a city sewer running to this site is required for this project. It also enhances the value of all the properties in the neighborhood. Little Flower Ventures intends to build these houses as single-family homes. Little Flower Ventures has no intention whatsoever to construct houses for student rentals. One of the concerns I always have when I have to make a presentation to a zoning board is the legal requirement that the petitioner must present accurate facts and not misrepresent the board. Those who speak in opposition are not bound by such an obligation. And sometimes the people in opposition say things that they can't really support with facts. Here you're faced with neighbors who have in the past said they favor the project, but they are concerned that the houses are being built for student rentals, but they have no proof that that's the case. The petitioner knows that one of the opponents made a phone call to elicit opposition to this project in which it is claimed that the design of the houses itself is proof that the houses are designed to be student rentals. This argument was repeated by a board member at the hearing on January 12. The state statute that governs the ABZA prohibits the petitioner and opponents from contacting you board members outside of this hearing. The statute is quoted on your website. The petitioners have followed these guidelines and procedures lawfully and respectfully. The claim that the proposed houses will be used for student rentals ignores that these houses are governed by the St. Joseph County zoning ordinance requirement for single-family homes. Single-family homes are limited to use by no more than 2 unrelated persons. A single-family home is defined under the zoning code as an individual detached building containing 1 dwelling unit. To be a dwelling unit, the place must have a lawful cooking facility. There's only 1 kitchen in these houses. It doesn't matter how many bedrooms, bathrooms, laundry rooms, recreation rooms, offices are built into a house. If there's only 1 kitchen, it's a single-family dwelling and can be occupied only by a single family. These houses will all be built with only 1 kitchen. They will be single-family homes that can be occupied by a single family or no more than 2 persons who are not related. On this point, I'd ask you to consider what types of houses are being built. These houses will have a minimum of 3,200 square feet. At current construction costs of approximately $125 a square foot, these houses will cost a minimum of $400,000 just to build. I represent a number of investors who own student rental property. I don't know anyone who's in the student rental business who would spend over $400,000 to buy a house as an investment property to rent to students that's located in a zoning district that allows occupancy by only 2 unrelated persons. It makes no economic sense to spend that amount of money on a house and try to fill it with students, with the risk of being fined by the county or having legal action brought against you for violating the county zoning ordinance. So to repeat, the petitioner, Little Flower Ventures, has no intention to build these houses as student rental properties. So let's look at the requirements for a variance. The variance may be approved on a determination by this board that 1, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. If the variance is granted, Little Flower Ventures will construct 6 single-family residential homes in the SJC, St. Joe County, R single-family district. Single-family homes are consistent with the zoning for homes in the neighborhood and the master plan for development in this neighborhood. Rather than being potentially injurious to the public health, safety, and morals, this project will enhance and bring value to the neighborhood. This project presents a unique opportunity to extend a city sewer to this neighborhood that is unlikely to ever present itself again. The City of South Bend's current policy is that it will not extend city sewer and water to an area unless it can be annexed. This area is not likely to be annexed by the City of South Bend. In this specific circumstances, Mayor Mueller honored a commitment that was made to the petitioner to allow the petitioner to bring city sewer to this site. Having a city sewer at the site enhances the value of all of the property in the neighborhood. The city sewer line will be extended to the neighborhood at the petitioner's expense. This board and the neighbors should not let this opportunity to enhance the value of the entire neighborhood slip by. Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property, including in the variance, will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. No other property will be affected by this variance in an adverse manner. There are 264 houses in the neighborhood. 87 of those houses have frontage of less than 60 feet, a third of them. 73 of these houses have only 40 feet of frontage. That's 28% of them. The staff reports that the density in the block would be consistent with what is allowed by right under the current zoning ordinance. The staff report points out that with the existing total frontage of 612 feet, under current zoning standards, 10 lots would be allowed as right. Petitioners are asking to add only 6 houses. There are 3 existing houses on the block. There would be no adverse effect on any adjacent property. Number 3, the strict terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. No house can be built on the site without extending the city sewer to the project site. 5 houses can be built without a variance. The variance is needed to enable the petitioner to build the 6th house, and the 6th house is needed to defray the high cost of running the sewer line to the site. There's an obvious positive benefit to the entire neighborhood to have a city sewer in the vicinity of the neighborhood. The benefit of this project to the county and the neighborhood is at risk if the variance is not granted.
You got a minute left.
Thank you. Your legal counsel suggested at the January meeting that a commitment against student rentals would not be enforced by the county, and that the restriction being proposed by the opponents to impose a restriction on the petitioner against student rentals could open up the county to litigation. I suggest to you again that such a restriction imposed on the petitioner is not necessary in view of the fact that the county single-family zoning law limits the use of these houses to not more than 2 unrelated persons. The petitioner, Little Flower Ventures, asks that you approve the variance request without restrictions. And if you have questions, the petitioner and I will try to answer them. Thank you.
Okay.
James,
Yeah, Mr. Holly.
where is the connection coming from for the sewer and the water? Where is that originating from?
There is a representative from Abernmarch here who's probably more, can answer that question better than I can.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Mike Huber, Abernmarsh Consultants, 315 West Jefferson Boulevard, South Bend, Indiana. Mr. Hawley, we're coming down from Douglas, down Burdette Street to Bailey, and then east on Bailey to serve the property.
Thank you.
And just quickly, we did look at this. He mentioned that we have to have sewer and water for this. I mean, we looked at options for this development without sewer and water, and because of the previous memory care facility and the disruption with the property and the land, there's really not a lot of area that's acceptable for septic systems in there. So we really don't have an option that doesn't allow us to build on this under a traditional 100-foot frontage private well and septic development.
Now, when you say coming down from Douglas, are you coming down from Ironwood heading
No,
west?
so we're coming down south from Douglas, down Burdette Street, and then east on Bailey. There's sewer at Douglas Road and Burdette.
Okay, I got you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Does anybody else got any questions?
I do. You might have to come back up, Mr. Huber. So you made mention that the city sewer will be run down, actually all the way down Burdette onto Bailey, at the expense of the petitioner. Will the residents that are along those routes at that time have the ability to hook up to that sewer and get rid of septic, and if so, at what price?
Yeah, whatever the city's connection fees would be, yeah. That'd be my understanding is that the sewer then is a public sewer. It's the city of South Bend.
Do you know how many residents that would affect?
We did do a study. I don't have in front of me right now. We did do a study in terms of how many people that can serve, and the city wanted to make sure. I mean, it's going to be a 10-inch sewer line down Burdette, oversized to be able to accommodate future additional extensions of that, if at some point it ever became annexed by the city or the city's utility policy on extensions and connections were to change. So they're asking us to oversize that sewer on Burdette to make sure that we have adequate capacity to serve a larger portion of the neighborhood.
What material would you be using for the piping?
I'm pretty sure it's PVC. I have to go back and double check and look again, but.
And then Mr. Masters mentioned, and I think you alluded to a little, no house without sewer. So basically, if the sewer is not ran, they're not buildable lots because of the requirement for well and septic. Is that what I'm understanding, I guess?
So, I mean, typically you could do a well and septic, but we had geotech testing, soil testing done in the area. And specifically, I think a little bit on the eastern edge, you might be able to get a lot on the eastern side, but anything that had been previously occupied as the memory care facility or the parking lot would not be buildable suitable for a new septic system to be allowed.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
1 second, Mike. They're not running water down there, it's just the sewer. There's already
Correct,
water.
sewer, there's already water there, right.
There's already city water?
There's already city water that served the memory care facility. We're just running a new sewer line. And there had previously been a lift station and sewer to the memory care facility as well.
Understood.
Hey, Mike, if the developer is unable to use PVC material because of shortage, and I'm sure DJ maybe could clarify, if there's a shortage on PVC or an inability to get PVC, what if they go to concrete? That additional cost of material, is that going to get imposed on residents?
Look, the petitioner is paying the full cost of the sewer extension, right? So no additional residents will be involved in any additional costs associated with the cost of the sewer project. It's being fully paid for specifically by our client and solely by our client.
Anybody else got anything?
Nope.
Mine got answered. I know they took both my questions.
Just one thing that I'd like to clarify, because it's been a while and you don't see these every day, is that the lot width for single-family homes served by public water and sewer is 60 feet. And there's been some question about, well, what could be developed without water and sewer? Typically, it would be 100 feet if the lot isn't served by water and sewer. So 100 without, 60 with, and they're asking for a variance from the decreased 60. It's not always 60, it's 60 if it's being served by public water and sewer.
Okay. Anybody got any questions? No? Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Open this up to the public now. Is there anybody that would like to speak in favor of the petition? Please step forward. See none. Any on Zoom? No? Okay, seeing none. All right. Is there anybody that would like to speak against the petition? Please step forward.
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Peter J. Agostino, attorney at law with offices at 131 South Taylor Street, South Bend, Indiana. Here speaking on behalf of Michael and Lisa Dobson, who live at 54165 Willis.
You have 5 minutes, sir.
First thing I'd like to do is to hand out to you a copy of a restriction or commitment that we propose be imposed in connection with this. The state law does allow you to impose a commitment as a condition of granting the petition here. And so I would like to present to you a copy of a proposed commitment.
Is it this?
No,
That's from,
this is the petitioners, this
DJ.
is the
that's from
remonstrators.
Little Flower. In your hand.
I hate that box. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Now, this commitment that is before to you is familiar to at least one other person in this room, and that would be Mr. Masters, because he's the author of this, and he shared it with me as a commitment that was done with respect to the traditions of development at Twickenham and South Bend Avenue, which addresses exactly the concerns that the landowners around Bailey have. I also have here to submit to the board a signed commitment by 9 property owners. Notre Dame owns 3 parcels. They're signatory to this as well, indicating that they will submit themselves to the same restriction. That was a concern that was expressed at a prior meeting. Why would he impose something on this developer if the surrounding landowners wouldn't submit themselves to that? I have something signed here indicating that these property owners next to this property will, in fact, submit themselves to this commitment. I'd like to present that to the board.
Did you say that 3 of those were owned by the university, 3 properties?
Yes,
And did they sign also?
yes.
Thank you.
And I believe there's 2 representatives here from the university as well that can confirm.
You got 2 minutes.
So what empowers this board with the right to impose a commitment is the fact that the developer in this case needs a change from this board in legal restrictions. They're not wanting to live with the 5 houses that they could do without coming to this board. So they're saying, let us share the cost of this through this Board of Zoning Appeals to impose the burden of this upon the surrounding property owners. You're being asked to be a vehicle to allow them to make better economic sense out of the deal for a project. And that entitles you, and it enables you, and it authorizes you under the state law to say, wait a second, if you wanted to use us to help you develop, we can impose a condition upon you to protect the other property owners in your area. And that is, in this case, no student housing. Mr. Masters made a big point about saying that the county ordinance is enough protection. It's not, because the property owners that live there that are impacted by this don't have the right to go enforce the county ordinance. Only the county does. But doing this commitment is a statement to the property owners around here that says, you care, you matter, we don't want you impacted by this, and we're willing to tell the developer that if you want to do this, make sure that you abide and take care of your neighbors. Don't put the burden on them, and if you do, they've got a right to enforce this. That's what the commitment does. It's a very small commitment, and it says a lot. It says a lot that the developer doesn't want to say that.
You got your 5 minutes is up. Thanks,
Thank
sir.
you.
Mr. Augustino, I have a question real quick, though. So the commitment, obviously written by Little Flower Ventures, basically follows the ordinance on what the commitments are. This commitment, as presented by you, and you said this is not enforceable by the homeowners, it's enforceable by basically St. Joe County is what it boils down to. Who enforces this then?
No, I'm saying that the ordinance, the county ordinance that restricts the single-family housing, that's enforceable by the county. The commitment, whether it's the one that was submitted or the one that I submitted, either one of those commitments would be, could be enforced by the property owners. The problem with the commitment that you have from Little Flower is it takes away in the last line exactly what we're asking for, which says, as soon as the property is sold, we're not bound by the commitment. That's really not a commitment at all.
But isn't the subsequent homeowner still bound by the commitments that are in the ordinances?
In the ordinance, yes, but those are only enforceable through the county, not by the property owners that are impacted by the conditions that result from having student housing.
So your argument would be that the county doesn't enforce that ordinance?
I would say that the enforcement of those ordinances have been limited and restricted because of resources, because of organizational structure of the county over time.
But I guess that's my same question is, if the county can't enforce its own ordinances, who's going to enforce this commitment?
The property owners,
Well, through legal action.
yes.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get to, is how is this going, how is this going to get monitored and enforced and brought back onto the petitioner? If the county can't do its job currently, who's going to take care of this? So it's legal action because they're bound by this.
Yes.
Understood, thank you.
Thank you.
Sean or Abby, if I may, can you guys weigh in on that, please, with regard to who enforces that? And do you have any stats?
I'm not sure where Mr. Agostino is getting that the neighboring property owners can enforce a written commitment imposed under the zoning laws. The statute for commitments say that commitments can be enforced by the Plan Commission or the Board of Zoning Appeals. And if there's specifications for specific people entitled to enforce commitments under the BZA's rules, which there aren't any for anybody but the BZA, or if there's a specially affected person designated in the commitment itself, which I don't see here.
I don't think he's paying attention to you.
He's not. Well,
So,
go ahead.
no, I'm trying to,
On this commitment, I see a problem with the last line, where only 2 students can live there. They're not related to the owner. So that means if you'd have a guy and a gal move together, and she had 3 kids, and he was the owner of the property, one of the kids couldn't go to school or live there. Because you're limiting yourself to 2 unrelated to the owner.
yeah, you can go down a rabbit hole on how you can get to the number of kids
Right.
in here,
That's what I say, I
so,
wouldn't say.
yeah, yeah.
That's what I'm presently doing, reviewing the statute for commitments to see if there's any additional language about enforceability beyond the county and the BCA.
Okay, but it's obviously something that's being enforced, right?
Well, presently, the way written commitments are, how we've enforced them is it's enforced as part of a variance, a special use, a rezoning, and that's enforced by county planning staff. In the same way that if we received a complaint, a zoning violation complaint, in the same way we would enforce that.
Because it is a zoning violation.
Well, I understand, but the argument being made is that, as if to say, we're not enforcing the ordinance that's already there. And that's what I'm asking. For examples, has it been enforced? And is that area plans department? Is that, it wouldn't be the building department?
So the understanding, correct, is that there's only enforcement when there's a complaint made, correct? So the understanding from both of these petitions that we're seeing in front of us right now is that one states that the address and the property, the one that we were given to us by Mr. Augustino, and it states vacant parcel, property, and resident. Neither one of these are really doing anything outside of what our already in place ordinance states, aside from putting something on paper, and giving the residents that live around this, what, authority? Is that what I'm understanding? Well, no. I understand.
All right, I'm reading from 3674, 1015, under remedies of enforcement commitments, injunctive relief costs, venue defenses, exclusions, under the Plan Commissioner Board of Zoning Appeals, may adopt rules, D, an action to enforce a commitment may be brought in the Circuit or Superior Court of the county by the Plan Commission, Board of Zoning Appeals legislative body before which the commitment was made. In the case of a commitment, sorry, Brandy, I had seen a section about who can enforce.
Right,
And it's basically the county, the BZA, or if it's special, if it's specifically listed in the commitment itself.
That's what I said, yes.
So you would have to assign in the commitment that it can be enforced by property owners in the surrounding area. Is that correct, Brandy?
Yes, if you wanted the property owners to be able to do that, this would have to specifically say that these are specially affected people who are entitled to enforce it, which it currently doesn't.
All right. Can we move on to anybody else? Or do we
In
have
the
to
public
solidify
hearing?
this right now? Yeah, we haven't even ended the public hearing yet.
but you can.
All right. Is there anybody else that would like to speak against this petition? Please step up. Name, address, and you have 5 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Dobbs, and I live at 54165 Willis Street, South Bend. My wife and I have lived there for about 4 years. Willis, 54165 is the house at the northeast corner of the yellow triangle. As the Board of Zoning Appeals is aware, this petition was initially tabled at the request of the board to have the petitioner address the concerns of the neighbors abutting the development with a letter of commitment addressing the prevention of undergraduate student rental housing or rental housing which would cause disruptive activities in the neighborhood as a result of the proposed development. The petitioner was asked to provide a written commitment to address those concerns, which has been provided to the board, but falls short of addressing the concerns of the neighbors. As the petitioner has indicated in his prior presentations, it is the intent to develop and sell these as single-family homes. I can speak for myself and the abutting neighbors. If that is the case, we are absolutely fine with that. But when you review the commitment provided to the board, the last paragraph of their written commitment terminates upon the transfer of the ownership of the land. To provide the protection to the abutting neighbors and to the neighborhood, the last paragraph needs to be removed or changed to indicate that the commitment that is recorded with the land and that the future owners would have to comply with that written commitment. If the petitioner is unwilling to agree with that modification in their commitment, then it seems apparent that the intent of the proposed development, especially when you review the interior layout of the homes being developed as provided in the packet to you board members in your petition filing, that they can easily be designed for student housing. Approving their petition with the commitment provided falls short of the abutting neighbor's primary concern and would have an adverse effect to the value of our properties adjacent to the development and be injurious to the public morals, general welfare of the neighborhood and the community of Morningside. I've lived there, and a couple of comments by the board asking who enforces student housing. Please, anytime you guys want to drive down on a Friday night, or excuse me, Saturday morning early, Friday morning early, you'll see where the student housing is located. I happen to live about a block and a half from Legacy Village, which is 14 units, not 6, 14 units. And all I hear is the bass of the music that's going on at that place to 2, 3, 4 in the morning. You go down Willis Street, there are 4 homes in a row that have a minimum of 6 to 7 students in them. They're not related. My son works for a carpet cleaning service, and he cleans those, and they replace them the following year. Go by those at the end of May, and you'll see just exactly what's going on during the week that they graduate. So appreciate your time and concern. Thanks.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak against this petition? Please step forward. Name, address, and you got 5 minutes, sir.
I'll take less than that. My name is Tom Sullivan. I live at 54278 Ivy Road. I've attended all of these meetings, and my wife has, except for this one. I can say that I would accept an enforceable commitment, not on your basis, but maybe I'm wrong legally. If this document here, the one presented by, Mr. Pete, is put in a deed that goes to every one of those properties when it's conveyed, I believe, but I could be wrong, and I'll listen to counsel here, that I, as a resident of that area, could enforce it and sue that person. So if I was gonna buy that property, and I saw that of record, I would think twice if I was gonna use it for any other reason other than the one legally I'm entitled to. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak against this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none, any on Zoom? Seeing none, the public portion is now closed.
On the subject of your earlier questions that we moved on from for the sake of finishing the public hearing, one of them was, is the proposed commitment from the adjoining property owners more restrictive than what the ordinance is? And I do believe it technically is, because they specifically define related to as only being a child or grandchild, or someone who could be considered child or grandchild by step purposes or adoption. And the zoning ordinance does not actually define the word related. It just says related by blood or marriage or otherwise. So I think technically that this is a little more restrictive than what the ordinance would allow, because the ordinance would allow you to, I don't know, reside with 4 of your second cousins or something if all of you were attending school, and this would not allow that.
So is this can we use commitment A or commitment B instead of having to read the entire thing, or?
Well, I would just say petitioner's commitment and remonstrator's commitment.
Okay.
I don't know. The petitioner's commitment is basically just what the ordinance says. Unrelated occupants not exceeding 2.
I guess that's I'm trying to gain clarity on that a little bit. So the petitioner's petition, or the commitment that they put before this board, matches the ordinance as far as I can tell.
Basically.
The
They also just say that they won't have Oh, no, you're right. I was misremembering. It just says what the ordinance says, basically.
And the paragraph that they've stated, the last one that came into question of it's expires is because the next home buyer would still have to abide by the ordinances, correct?
I don't know if that's the reason why they wrote it
Well, I
that
understand,
way,
but I mean, in just general, real
generally
life,
speaking,
if I go buy one of these houses, I still
have.
have to abide by the ordinance, correct?
Yes, I
Okay.
mean, yes.
Okay, so that answers that question. The question, so then the one from the Ronstraders, how, is it true what the gentleman said? If it's attached to a deed somehow, that becomes then binding to every subsequent purchaser of the house?
That is what the purpose of recording the commitments is. That would be why if the petitioners
Didn't put that
proposal,
paragraph
if it
in?
didn't have the expiration date and it was recorded, it would be binding, continuing on through each subsequent
So it would
purchaser.
supersede the ordinance then?
I mean, they say the same thing, but yes.
Understood.
As far as the petitioners, that says the same
Yes,
thing.
the petitioners.
Right.
And then the other question you had was about the enforceability. And I stand by what I said earlier. I do think we have located where the community may have gotten confused. The Area Plan Commission ordinance for commitments that are associated with rezoning petitions has a subsection in there that does explicitly provide for owners within 300 feet to enforce them. Under the BZA commitment section, it does not include that language.
Okay.
Brain, I have a legal question. I don't know, maybe if I say this correctly, but if we impose a commitment that basically limits the use of the property, does that now basically constitute a taking?
No, it does not.
Oh,
It's
sorry,
a
what'd you
contract-
what'd you last say? I
Constitutes a
didn't hear
A
you.
taking.
It's a contractual agreement, essentially, that the county is agreeing to waive a legal requirement in exchange for that. That's the consideration that you would technically be looking at there.
You guys good?
No, because I wasn't here in January, I'm having a difficult time reconciling a variance request for distance with all of this unrelated stuff. Not to throw you guys under the bus, but how did it go from that to we're worried about who may or may not be living in the house and we want to regulate that somehow? I'm having a hard time
The variance that
equating
we are
those two
here
things.
for is from 60 feet
To 53 feet.
53 feet.
Right,
Technically,
right.
It has been the concern of the remonstrators every time
Yes.
this or related petitions have come up as to the use
Okay.
specifically.
Can I ask a
That is why
question
it
of the
came up.
remonstrators?
Yes, but you'd need to specify which one you want to ask so they can come up and talk.
Green shirt, glasses. Have you,
Very descriptive.
thank you.
hang on.
Right.
And he's got to say his name and address again so we know
name and
who's
address.
talking.
Oh, okay.
Name and address again, please.
Mike Dobson, 54165 Willis Street.
Thanks, Mike, and don't misinterpret any of this. I totally get where you're coming from. We were all college students. But, you know, you're referring to, it's obvious where the students live in these different structures around your neighborhood. Have you ever called code enforcement? And then nothing was done?
Well, we're in the county, so the county does not have code enforcement until recently.
Right?
And today, code enforcement is handling other items. It's a minimal amount of code enforcement. I think it's yard.
I mean, the county does have zoning enforcement and has had zoning-related enforcement prior to the new code enforcement. regime.
Those calls go unheeded.
Okay,
Yes.
but you have called?
Correct. We also call the non-emergency 911 sheriff's department. And they come out so often that they sometimes don't come out.
Sure. And that's unfortunate, and I wish that wasn't the case. But
Well, Lance, I don't think you entirely got your question answered from prior. So area plan staff does enforce the definition of the family in the zoning ordinance. We do, on a complaint basis, look into these cases. As far as like parties in that, we wouldn't take that complaint. We're not going to go out to a party and ask who lives in that house. But if we get a complaint that there are more than 2 unrelated individuals residing on the same property, we will look into that and enforce the definition of family as found in the zoning ordinance.
And I guess to enlighten you a little bit as to January, obviously this board has a very compassionate view of what happens to the surrounding homeowners. And there was a lot of differing views on the impact of what this could have on them. And at that time, we did not have a full board. We were waiting on, what, 2 people?
Correct.
So we could not come to a conclusion with only 5 at that time, so.
I just want to remind you guys that the petitioner does have a 5-minute
I-
response time.
I'm trying to get there.
So that's the reason it got kicked down the curb.
But Joe, one of our review criteria is the general welfare of the public of the area. So
Yep.
we have a due right to be
Exactly.
responsible
You're
what their
correct.
concerns
Yep.
are.
Who's the catch? They can put 20,000 more on 5 of them and just build 5 and it all go away.
All right. You have 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was hoping you hadn't forgotten that. We were not given the courtesy of seeing what was provided to you by by Mr. Augustino. He represented that 9 people have signed saying they would sign this commitment. May we see that? Because you know what? There's a whole lot more than 9 people that own property in this neighborhood. Including the 800-pound gorilla, you know, my alma mater 3 times over, owns a lot more than 3 lots in this neighborhood. And and we were told explicitly they wouldn't sign such a commitment.
I need that back, by the way, please.
Damn it, wrong pipe. Well, I don't know where this is signed on behalf of the University of Notre Dame. Down at the bottom. Mr. Sexton, I don't believe you own those properties, do you?
University of Notre Dame does.
Well, that's signed by you. That's signed by you. It doesn't even indicate that you have a position at the
Excuse me,
University of Notre Dame.
There
I know you
shouldn't be
do.
arguments going on between the crowd and the
I'm sorry.
petitioner.
Well, I was interrupted in the middle of my presentation. Let me just say, it's not signed on behalf of the University of Notre Dame the way I would expect a document that's going to be binding on the university to be signed. But let's talk about something else here. First of all, I appreciate Mr. Augustino's recognition of my draftsmanship. The restriction that he showed you that is encompassed in, I suppose we'll call it the remonstrators version, is a restriction I drafted for the Traditions, which is located at Twickenham Drive and South Bend Avenue, the townhouses there. It's in the city of South Bend, so it's not subject to St. Joe County zoning ordinance. And although the city of South Bend has a similar zoning ordinance, it's a PUD, and so a planned unit development, so it's not subject to any zoning ordinance, and that's why you had to impose your own set of restrictions. Similarly, every time this comes up, they bring up Legacy Village that's nearby. Legacy Village is also a PUD and was not subject to the St. Joe County zoning ordinance, and so there had to be restrictions imposed there. I have to tell you that I think the county zoning ordinance, if it would be enforced, is stronger than the language of any of these commitments, because these commitments focus on student rentals. The zoning ordinance would prohibit any rentals of more than 2 people. Doesn't matter whether they're students or otherwise. So you've got no more than 2 persons who are not related living in this house. And think of the absurdity of this restriction. You get a professor who rents a house and maybe has a child that's a student. He can't rent that house because he has a child who's a student at a university. Or anybody else for that matter. Anybody else who comes and rents one of those houses and happens to have a student in their family, that student can't live there, and the owner of the property can't rent to that person? Tell me how that makes any sense whatsoever. It doesn't. The simple matter is that all of these properties are subject to the zoning ordinance. And what I find amazing is that Mr. Augustino, my good friend, who is a deputy county attorney, who has the county attorney as a member of his law firm, is telling me that the county doesn't enforce its ordinances. Well, maybe somebody ought to wake him up a little bit and tell him, enforce the ordinances. If Mr. Dobson is calling and saying, hey, there's a zoning violation going on in my neighborhood, somebody ought to respond. You know, and it seems to me that the staff over here is all nodding their heads saying, yeah, we agree, somebody ought to respond to this. So I dare say that what my client wants to do, what the petitioner wants to do, which is have these houses subject to the St. Joe County zoning ordinance, the restrictions that limit the use to no more than 2 unrelated persons, is far stronger than all these other commitments, particularly when you don't have a commitment that the vast number of people in this neighborhood are going to be bound by the same restriction. And this board cannot impose a restriction on this petitioner that is not imposed on everybody else. That's simply fundamentally unfair. So we think that what was proposed here, which is it's going to be subject to the zoning ordinance, unlike these other developments we always keep hearing about, it protects not only everybody else in the neighborhood, it protects anybody who buys the property. So thank you for allowing me to speak again.
Thank you. Okay.
Did you get the signed thing back?
You guys have any more
Did you get the
questions?
signed paper back?
Oh.
We need to get that form back. for that
Yeah,
other
Sean's
one.
good. You guys got any more questions?
No, sir.
You guys? You guys don't have any questions, I will take a motion.
I'd appreciate it if the gallery would be quiet. Thank you.
No, it's
only one.
It's only one this time.
The variance is from 60 feet to 53 feet.
Mr. Chairman, there's been a lot of discussion about the implications and impact this decision can have on that community. But as was stated by council here and other councils, you know, all we can impact is what the petition requests, and as what we see and hear by the quote-unquote testimony, I guess, from the petitioners and remonstrators. The ability for the county to police what happens in the county is up to the county. I believe the ordinances that are built into the county standards are quite sufficient to take care of the remonstrators' concerns. So I make a motion that we approve the variance as requested.
Second. Lance Roush.
Sorry, Joe Velleman.
Mr. Hawley?
Second.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes, I hear.
Mr. Moffett?
I don't
No.
think that was his
He-
vote.
that
I
wasn't
think he
a
was
vote.
saying he heard you.
I hear you. I haven't voted yet.
Oh.
Yes.
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
No.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Vellman?
Yes.
And Mr. Tavernier?
No. But, based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, grants your variance and will issue written findings of the facts. Thank you. Number 2, please.
Location is 68936 Beach Road, an unaddressed 2 ± acre parcel at the northeast corner of Shively Road and Beach Road. Owner is Lehman Farms LP. Requested action variance 1 from section 154.092D to allow a front yard setback of 0 foot where a minimum of 35 foot is required for an existing house constructed 35 feet from the center line of the road. and variance 2 from section 154.092A to allow a lot area of 1 acre where a minimum of 20 acres is required. Zoning is A, agricultural district, county.
Do you mind clicking on the PowerPoint there? Oh, perfect. So the petitioner would like to split off the existing house from the 39 acres of tilled acreage. The setback variance is going to be needed because this will require 40 feet of right-of-way dedication on Beach Road. So it's actually going to encroach a little into the right-of-way, so they'll have to work out an encroachment agreement with the county engineer's office. It's the existing house. And this accessory structure will also go with that 1 acre property. When you turn to the state law criteria, staff finds that the approval will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community. The variances will not allow for the creation of an additional residential use, and will allow the tilled acreage and the house to be owned separately. The tilled acreage will remain in agricultural production. The use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because the variances will not lead to any real change in the use. They'll just be the one residential structure that remains there. And strict application of the terms of this chapter would result in practical difficulties in that they would deny a subdivision that allows the residential portion to be owned separately from the 39 tilled acres, which potentially increases the value of both by allowing them to be owned separately, and allows for, at least in the near future, the continued cultivation of this agricultural land. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
I'm having a tough time seeing this. The other 39 acres is not being designated as an outlot though, correct?
It is not, no. So they would have 2 lots by right. The 39 can't be further subdivided, so it's not going to allow the creation of an additional
They have 2
buildable
lots,
lot.
they're still gonna only have 2 lots.
Exactly.
They're still requesting 2 lots.
Yeah, could have been 2 20s, but now it's going to be 1 and 39. So.
Perfect.
Questions? No? Good. So petitioner present? Okay.
Oh.
Petitioner?
Huh? There's no petitioner? Okay. This never happened. What do we do?
We got to table it, I think. Brandy?
I mean, technically, they can.
Well, we can move it to the end, can't we? We can move it to the end, correct?
Yeah.
You
we
can do
move-
that, yes.
Yeah, we can
And then if they're not here at the end, then we can table it till next month.
Okay.
They have to be here?
Was it Lang Feeney that was gonna make the
I
presentation?
think we,
Why?
It was not, no.
I think they do.
I mean, but the property owner was informed, and, okay.
Move
Move on.
Council, does someone have to be here? She's looking.
Yeah, she's confirming her
All right,
thoughts.
well, we can ask for in favor,
So
right?
yeah, in order for the petition to be heard, the petitioner or their representative must be in attendance. If no one's present, the board may table the petition for the following meeting or dismiss it.
Oh,
So if you want to be generous and move it to the end of this meeting and then wait to decide which of those things you want to do, that would be fine, but those are your options.
Does that need to be done by motion? Move
Yes,
it to the
you should,
end?
if you want to move it to the end, you should do a motion, and then you don't have to do roll call vote, you can just do voice vote for that.
I'll make a motion to move it to the end.
Second?
Second.
Motion second. And we're just, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay.
Okay. All right, number 3.
Location is 10401 Vistula Road. Owner is Joseph and Rebecca Crimmins. Requested action is variance 1 from section 154.107C2 to allow a side east yard setback of 4 foot where a minimum of 6 foot is required, and 2 from section 154.107C1 to allow a front yard setback of 18 feet where a minimum of 35 feet is required. Zoning is R Single Family District, County.
Good afternoon, Kylie Abrams, Area Plan Commission staff. Staff recommends approval of the requested variances. The petitioner is seeking to replace an existing shed with a 24-foot by 36-foot garage and driveway for storage purposes. Here is an aerial of the site. As you can see, the property shown is extremely narrow. Here is the provided site plan for the project. As you can see, the septic field is in the middle of the property, which leaves little area for the placement of a garage that could fit development standards and provide access to the septic field. Here is a photo showing the existing shed and driveway area. Looking west, looking east. Here's a photo showing the shared property line where the proposed garage would go. On to the state criteria for this variance. 1, approval will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. Despite not meeting setbacks, it will not obstruct any views of Vistula Road nor the St. Joe River. The proposed location will also allow for future access to septic maintenance and servicing. The use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Many other garages in this area are close to the side and front lot lines, and the proposed garage would align with the character and nature of the homes along the river. The strict application of the terms of this chapter would result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. Due to the small lot area and narrow lot width, there is limited space and access for a newly built garage. A garage built in any other location on the property would impose on septic access, as well as other neighbors' views of the St. Joe River. I'll take any questions.
Anybody have questions? No. Is the petitioner present? On Zoom?
No way.
Oh, 2 for 2.
How did that happen?
Seriously?
Did they get the date mixed up?
Well, your options are the same
guys
as the
wanna make a
last
motion?
I'll
time.
make a motion to move this petition to the end pending the petitioner showing up.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Seriously.
Interesting.
I would imagine that's something you guys point out, right?
Yeah.
All right, number 4.
Sean's texting him right now. Sean, are you texting a payphone at the corner of Shively and Beach?
Number 4, the location is 10347 Glenwood Avenue. Owner is Shane Denman. Requested action, variance 1 from section 154.070, C1A1, to allow a detached accessory structure building area of 2,272 square feet, where a maximum of 960 square feet is permitted. Zoning is R, Single Family District County.
Kylie Abrams, Area Plan Commission staff again. Staff recommends approval of this requested variance. The petitioner is seeking to construct an addition onto an existing 1,200 square foot pole barn. The existing pole barn was granted a variance in 2018, which allowed for 1,552 square feet of accessory area, where 960 square feet was permitted, for a lot less than 1 acre in area. The 1,552 square feet consisted of the 352 square foot detached garage and the proposed 1,200 square foot pole barn. This is an aerial view of the property showing the existing pole barn, the detached garage, and the primary residence. Here's the provided site plan from the petitioner. The addition would be in the same character and styling of the existing pole barn. Here's a photo of the existing pole barn. Looking west, looking east. The 2017-2018 variance file recorded 19 other similarly sized pole barns in the nearby area, which was confirmed by me during the updated site visit for this addition. This photo shows an oversized pole barn just 2 blocks away from the petitioner's property at 10290 Neely Street. On to the state criteria. The additional square footage will not prevent the pole barn from meeting setback and height requirements and will not obstruct views nor access to the yard. Oh, apologies. The approval will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Allowing for indoor storage of the petitioner's property that would otherwise be stored outside can only improve values and aesthetics of nearby properties. Site visits from previous variance files and from a few weeks ago confirmed that a pole barn of this size and nature would be very in character with the area. Number 3, the strict application of the terms of this chapter would result in practical difficulties in the use of this property. Due to the relatively small size of the home and lot, the petitioner is limited in storage availability on the property if forced to meet developmental standards for this district and lot. I will take any questions.
Anybody got any questions? No? Okay. Hopefully the petitioner's here for this one.
I believe they are.
Yes, you're the winner. Name and address in 10 minutes, sir.
My name is Shane Denman, 10347 Glenwood Avenue. Looking for some more additional storage for cars, vehicles, motorcycles. I'm a painter by trade, and I've bought a lot of things, and I'm finishing them, and I just need places to be able to walk in my backyard and get them out instead of going to a storage unit and paying for it. So just looking for you guys to be able to approve this so that I can continue on with my fun.
Okay. Anybody got any questions?
No, sir.
Nope. All right. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Oops. Open it up to the public. Is there anybody that would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? Seeing none. Is there anybody that would like to speak against this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? No? All right, public portion is now closed. You guys got any questions? I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the variance for the property located on Glenwood Avenue, Osceola.
You know better than that.
Donnie Ritzma, second.
Stepped on it.
Mr. Hawley,
Yes.
Mr. Moffett,
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma,
Yes.
Mr. Roush,
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Vellman,
Yes.
and Mr. Tavernier.
Yes, based on the testimony presented here today, after careful consideration, the Area Board of Zoning and Appeals has granted your petition and will issue written findings of the facts. Thank you. Number 5.
Location is 66074 Millet Road. Owner is Aaron and Vanessa Weber. Requested action variance 1 from section 154.092D to allow a side south yard setback of 10 foot where 30 feet is required for a detached garage. Zoning is R, single family district, county.
Thank you. Kylie Abrams, Area Plan Commission staff again. The petitioner is seeking to build a detached 25-foot by 35-foot garage on southwest of the existing house for additional storage purposes. Here's an aerial showing the property. The property is just a couple miles east of the town of Lakeville and just south of State Route 4, which can be seen on the aerial. Here is a site plan provided by the petitioner showing the location of the septic field and the proposed garage in red. Here's another site plan provided by the petitioner showing the dimensions and setback measurements for the proposed garage. Here's a photo of the property as seen from Millet Road. On to the state criteria. The approval will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because the closest neighbor is 500 feet away from the main structure and would not be affected by the proposed garage. The use and value of the area adjacent of the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Again, the closest affected property is currently separated by a line of trees and a hayfield. The design and materials planned for the proposed garage would also match the style and design of the main structure. Number 3, the strict application of the terms of this chapter would result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. The large property area provides ample access and potential for extra garage and storage space that could meet the development standards of the agricultural district. In summary, although staff has found that the proposed garage would likely not adversely affect the use and value of the area adjacent, denial was recommended because of the third criteria. The petitioner may bring additional information to light that demonstrates adequate practical difficulty in their presentation. I'll take any questions.
Any questions?
No, she's good.
No? All right. Is the petitioner present? Name, address, in 10 minutes, sir.
Aaron Weber, 66074 Millett Road. I do have some additional documents here. I believe I do have enough copies for everybody here. There should be two there. I'll wait till you all get a copy. It'll make more sense.
Thank you, ma'am.
So good afternoon, everybody, members of the board. Unfortunately, my wife Vanessa couldn't make it here with me today, but we are the owners of 66074 Millett Road. So I'm here as the petitioner for the side yard variance setback from 30 feet to 10 feet. We purchased this property with the existing dwelling back in 2016. We are wanting to build a detached garage on the home site that's to be used in conjunction with our residents. It'll be used to garage vehicles that are driven daily, as well as items to service our home, as in our lawnmower, snow blower. As you can see, we have a rather long driveway there. As Kylie had noted here, it will also be built to match the style and design of the current dwelling or the main structure. You do have the supports there, and I think those will help support our need for the variance that is needed to allow us to build the detached garage on the location where it can be used practically and daily for its intended purpose. So if you look at Exhibit 1, if you can read my chicken scratch, I've marked on there. That's an additional property layout that I wanted to give. So to give context of our property, it's approximately 10 acres, of which 7 acres of that is hay crop. About 1.5 acres is the woods that is on the east side, the far east side of the property. And the additional 1.5 acres that makes up the 10 is our home site. So that 1.5 acres for our home site does include the approximately 700-foot long driveway that you see there. So by the time you take out the driveway, we have approximately 1 acre of our home site that we reside on. So I think with that top aerial view that I gave to you all, that will show a better picture of the hay crop that you can see is farmed and cut right there. And that hay crop is currently leased, and it has been continually leased since we have been the owners of the property. The bottom of Exhibit 1 will show a closer aerial view of our dwelling, and I've indicated on there the best that I could, so forgive my boxes there that are on that'll show the utilities, the septic, the well, the buried propane tank, and the electrical junction box and their locations. So taking into consideration the layout of those items, the well, the septic, the buried LP tank, and the electrical junction box on the approximately 1 acre of our home site, placing a detached garage elsewhere on the proposed location would cause some practical difficulties. And I've noted on that bottom half of Exhibit 1 in red where the garage would be located in conjunction with everything else. Also of concern to us is that we wish to add with this detached structure. We want to do it without destroying or eliminating the prime farmland that is part of our property and currently is and has been in production. We cannot place the detached garage on the 7 acres of the farmland. So to move on to the next exhibit there, to support that this is agricultural property, I have marked as Exhibit 2 and 3. Exhibit 2, you will find the USDA farm record, and on Exhibit 3, you'll find the USDA farm map tract, which shows our property is registered with the USDA as agricultural. And it also will show where the agricultural land is in relation to our dwelling, and also shows both myself and wife as the current owners of the land. Exhibit 4 is a copy of the lease that we have with Mr. Eldon Heatwool, who farms this land. I present this to show that this land is in active production, and also, if you compare it to the USDA farm record, it'll indicate that Eldon is the registered operator of that farm cropland. The next exhibit I would like to just point your attention to as Exhibit 5 in your packet is our property record card from the County Assessor's Office that further documents that our property is zoned as agricultural property. I didn't know if it was mislooked when looking at the minutes because it was, I believe it was noted as a residential single-family district. So, and then the last piece in there is Exhibit 6. I believe a copy of a letter from one of our nearby neighbors may have been turned in as well in the packet, but I did want to provide it as well. That is, he's an adjacent neighbor that is in support of our variance request, so just to provide that. So due to the intended purpose of the detached garage being used on a daily basis, along with the utility placement and the proximity of the lot line of our home site, and while keeping the rented farmland in mind, we hope you'll see the practical difficulties we're faced with in placing this detached garage elsewhere on our property. Placing the detached garage elsewhere on this designated home site would not allow us to use it for its intended purpose. So thank you for your attention, and I'm willing to answer any additional questions you all may have.
I wish we had a picture of what you're planning on building as far as the appeal of the structure.
I can tell you, it will match the same design and structure of, so if you can see in the picture here, it'll be a gable structure that'll almost match with we'll have additional garage doors facing to the north. So it'll match the same roof line structure design of currently what you see. It'll just be an additional detached garage off to where you can see the basketball hoop on that picture. So it should match almost exactly as how the house is built to look.
Will the garage doors face the side of the house?
Yes, yeah, we face the east, so it would be that way, or north, I'm sorry. Yes.
Because it's a beautiful home.
Thank you.
Will you be required to remove any trees to add this structure?
Nope.
Will that obstruct the flow of stormwater drainage?
I'm sorry?
Stormwater drainage, will that obstruct the flow
Nope,
or drainage?
not at all.
So, does anybody else got any questions before I go?
Nope, go.
All right, so is that a pretty decent sized hill from the top of that pad, that parking pad or turnaround pad right there? Is that a hill or is it just a?
It is a little bit of an incline there. So one of the things, realizing there will need to be some fill that is brought in there to build the structure, but I don't think it'll be that much where it has to be.
So what's the distance that you have from eave to eave right now on where you have it placed?
Just approximately 10 feet. You're saying from, it would be the adjacent land to the,
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
From the eave of your house,
oh, okay.
okay,
Yes.
to the eave of your proposed garage, what is the distance from there to there?
I do not have that exact measurement
Okay, because,
from there.
so there's a couple different things that are going on that I see, right?
Sure.
So we've got this dimension here,
Yes.
or this picture here that you've given us that shows it to the left of the pad and turnaround pad, but then you've just given us this to where it makes it look like it's basically, if you move it any closer,
I
it's
did
gonna
that
eat
just
the
to give
corner of the
more
house, right?
context as to where the location of everything was with the utilities, because obviously if I bring it any further back this way, I start to run into the well, to the buried LP tank.
Well, you only have to be 10 feet away from the well,
Okay,
so, and you can't get to the LP tank because you can't get within 10 feet of the well, right? So with that being said, my question is why can't you move it over and move it up and come within 10 feet? Because you very well could bring it in and make it just a pull-in to the garage and have, unfortunately, you'll have very little turnaround space, right? Unless you back all the way out
right.
or do
And-
something
and
different.
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I think the intention of the placement there was not to get it anywhere in close as well to block the view of the house. So I think if we go too far forward, you start to block the view of your dwelling in placing it in front. I mean, I wouldn't want a detached structure.
I agree, but I disagree, right? I
Okay,
mean,
yeah.
you could in fact move it up 10 feet or 15 feet and you'd lose a little bit of your turnaround, but you'd still be able to back out of the garage right into, and you could put a turnaround in the other side of it, and you could back out a different way and pull around. So there really are other options that you have, correct, other than just this one. Yes?
I understand, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Can you clarify for me? You're talking about if he moved the garage closer to Millet Road, like
No,
down
you
his
could move it
driveway?
closer to the house.
In that
You have
picture,
less
moving
of the
it-
turnaround space.
Moving
You
it
could
up
move it
is what
up,
you're taking?
you could move it up, and you could move it closer to the house, or you could still move it up and move your turnaround. That concrete pad that's right there is essentially was probably put there for a turnaround to back out of your existing garage and then be able to drive down instead of having to back all the way down your driveway, right?
Yeah.
Or back into the grass. Well, you could essentially do the same thing.
I got you.
So you could move it up and still leave your somewhat of a turnaround pad, or you could move your turnaround pad to the other side. And your practical difficulty is no longer.
So DJ, are you basically getting at if he does that, he won't really need to go for a variance?
Did that, you wouldn't need a variance, right? If you moved it up. Because if this is to scale, essentially you've got 30 feet between the corner of the garage to the corner of your existing house that you could move it up, and you could probably bring this within code and not have any issue. And just move your turnaround pad, or extend your turnaround pad, right?
Yep.
Anybody else got any questions? No? Thanks, sir. Let's open it up to the public. Is there anybody here that would like to speak in favor of the petition? Please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? Seeing none. Is there anybody that would like to speak in, or against the petition? Sorry. Please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? Seeing none, public portion is now closed. You guys got any more questions? No? I'll take a motion.
So, Mr. Chairman, I will, with regard to, the third designation of our criteria, I think you demonstrated that there is reasonable accommodations that the petitioner didn't make any indication that having the detached garage closer to his home was imperative to him, because he's storing things that aren't needed on a daily basis, it sounds like. So moving it away from the house and closer to Millet Road, maybe closer to the driveway, is an opportunity for them. So I would make a motion that we deny the variance as requested.
Donnie Ritzman, I'll second.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
No.
Mr. Schaefer?
No.
Mr. Vellman?
Yes.
And Mr. Tavernier?
Yes. Based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, denies your variance and will issue written findings of the facts. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't like when they're on both sides. I can't pull apart.
Number 6.
Location is 24175 Grant Road. Owner is Jason Van de Zand. Requested action, variance 1 from section 154.070 C1A1 to allow a detached accessory building area of 3,125 feet where a maximum of 1,568 square feet is permitted. Zoning is R Single Family District County.
This is Sean Klein, Area Plan Commission staff. So on January 5th, 2021, the building department issued a red tag for an addition to this pole barn here. It added 784 more square feet to the structure. And as this developed, when the petitioner tried to pull a permit for the addition that was already done, it came to light that they were already in excess of their square footage for their accessory structures. There is this pole barn as well as 2 other garages on the property. Some of this might have been legal non-conforming with respect to the excess square footage, but with the new construction, that status was effectively lost. So in order to get the permit for the addition that has been made, this variance would need to be granted. Staff recommends denial of the variance. It's a pretty extreme departure from the permitted square footage in the R single-family district for a 3.5 acre lot, which could be a threat to neighborhood character, and it kind of gives the property more of a commercial appearance and might invite future unauthorized commercial uses or even accessory dwelling unit uses. So therefore, we recommend denial. When you turn to the 3 state law criteria, it's not likely that the approval would be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. But when you get to the second criteria, we find that, again, since this would be nearly double what the zoning ordinance would permit for this property, and the accessory structures are effectively 4 times the area of the house, we find that this would be, it would be detrimental to the use and value of the residential area adjacent to this property. We also feel that the variance does not meet criteria 3. The strict application would not result in practical difficulties because there are other options to bring this into conformance. For instance, if the two two-car garages were removed, it would bring it a lot closer to conformity. Other than that, I would be happy to answer any questions. We did receive 3 letters in remonstrance. Unfortunately, the addresses of those property owners were not provided. They might be in attendance for the public hearing today. So, any questions?
I just wanted clarity. Can you go back to the picture of the site, please?
Sure.
So basically, it's not the structure I see here that's open, it's on the east side that was enclosed is what is the
Correct,
problem?
the enclosed portion, right.
So
right.
that previous portion that's over there where I see like some windows and a door was open, and then they enclosed that in and created the extra square footage per se.
That's my
The
understanding.
lean-tos don't matter.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Understood.
Okay. You guys good? All right. Is the petitioner present? Name, address, in 10 minutes, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Greg Sharon, Dan Charner Associates, 1628 Commerce Drive, South Bend, Indiana. Here today representing Jason Vanderzand for a variance for 3,125 feet structure on property. The property is 4 acres. And being a 4-acre property, there's plenty of room to have the accessory structures. You just approved a variance for a 21,000 or 2,700 square foot accessory structure on a property that was, half the size of this. So, we are asking that, given the 4 acres and where the accessory structure is located in the middle of the site, it's not going to impact the adjacent neighbors. 4-acre site, once again, you'll have tractors, trailers that you need to take care of the property, and so it's not uncommon to have 3,000 plus acres of accessory, 3,000 square feet of accessory structure on a property this size. So that is our justifications that we ask that you just, and if you look at the other properties in the neighborhood, you'll see a lot of accessory structures that are in excess of 3,000 or more. So we feel just because the existing house is small, that shouldn't impact how much accessory structure space they have. And the owner is here today to also speak, so he'd like to say a few words too. Thank you.
Got about 7.5 minutes.
Jason Van de Zandy, 24175 Grant Road, South Bend. Ultimately, the two garages that were on that property were there. They were built in the 40s. The main structure of the barn itself was built around 1981 or 82. There was a variance applied for that building during that time frame. I was bored during COVID and built onto the lean-to, basically to enclose it. I have a fairly large car collection. Need a place to be able to store it, keep it out of sight, still be able to access it for personal use. We will never use it as a commercial structure. It is my residence. There's a reason it's fenced in, because I do not want anybody around it. To make a long story short, yes, I did screw up, and I apologize for not applying for permitting for doing this. It is our intent also that we are going to apply for permitting very soon to more than double the square footage of the house. We would like to make the house basically accessible so everything could be on one story, laundry room on the main floor, master bedroom on the main floor, everything else easily accessible. It's an older farmhouse, the staircase, and it's straight up and straight down. We would like to make it our forever home, which means we need everything on the main floor, which means we are going to expand it at some point. If you have any questions for me, I do have some pictures of the existing house. We've done nothing but improve the property in the last 20 years we've owned it. We've taken it from basically something that was uninhabitable to what it is now. And we intend on going much further with it to give it a very aesthetically pleasing look.
Okay. Does anybody got any questions?
Go ahead, Lance.
I drove by yesterday. I would agree. I think the property looks great. Have you been fined by the building department?
And they are paid
Okay, how much? Guess.
500-ish.
Okay.
I do have some paperwork on it here. I don't have
Okay.
all of it, yeah.
When I drove by it, I did notice there is some commercial signage on it. I think either advertising for Valvoline or an oil company or something like that. So you're not doing any other work over there? It's all your
They're
own
old- They're old
products?
signs. I have a very eccentric collection of signs too.
So they're personal, a collection of just
part of
old
my
things. They're not advertising for business?
No. If you want them down, we will gladly remove them. They can be put inside.
Anybody else got any questions? So you did this yourself,
Yes, I had an architect design it. I have a cousin who's an architect.
but you did the work yourself?
Yes, I
You
did.
didn't have a contractor do it?
No, I did it 100% myself.
Is it a concrete floor
Yes, it is.
and you did the concrete,
Yes,
or
I
it was
did.
existing?
Part of it was existing. There's very little that we added. Part of it was existing though.
Okay. All right. Nobody else got anything? All right. Thanks, sir. I'll open it up to the public. Is there anybody that would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. Name, address, and you got 5 minutes, please.
Sure. Hi, I'm Elaine Sizemore. I live at 56999 Wilson Manor, so I'm directly across the side street from Jason's property. And all I want to say is that there's in no way any appearance of any kind of commercial things going on in the property. The property has never looked so good. It is always kept up impeccably, and so I have absolutely no objection and would certainly ask for you to approve the variance. Any questions for me?
Well, thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else that would like to speak in favor? Name, address, and 5 minutes, sir.
Okay. Joe Romano, 56995 Wilson Manor, South Bend. I've been a resident of the neighborhood for 60 years. When I moved there, it was strictly a very wooded and basically average maintained facility within that 4 acres. Since Jason moved in well over 15, 20 years ago, he's done nothing but improve the area within that property, and I have no objection to anything going on there. There's no industrial or residential business being run there at all, and I'm well satisfied with the condition and the appearance of the neighborhood being basically a next-door neighbor to a lane, so we're side by side facing that property, and there's nothing that's objectionable to what's going on in that particular area. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Anybody else that would like to speak in favor of the petition, please step forward. Well,
You may have one.
I think there's 2. Name, address, and 5 minutes, please.
Yeah, name is Vince Leodansky. I live just west at 24133 Grant Road, and I approve of the zoning. Anything else?
You're good with it? You're good with the building? Is that what I understood?
Pardon me?
You're good with it? You're okay with it? You approve of it?
Yes.
I couldn't understand what you were
Yes.
saying. Okay. All right. Thanks, sir. Have a good day. Anybody else that would like to speak in favor of it, please step forward.
Well, my name is Jerry Stradsky. I live at 58181 Pecan Road. I've lived there for 49 years. I've known Jason for a long time, and he's a asset to the neighborhood, to the community. I help him, he helps me with car projects, et cetera. And, you know, we would like to see him be able to, you know, keep his building as is and eventually get his house the way he wants it, which would make the other properties more conform to the code. And that's what I would like to see. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak in favor of the petition? Please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? None? All right. Is there anybody that would like to speak against this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom?
But you got time.
Seeing none. Public portion is now closed. You guys got any more questions?
I guess I have a question for staff. Even the letters we received in opposition didn't have addresses. Can we comment on them still or not bring them up?
I would consider them, they are not really part of the record since they did
Understood.
not sufficiently identify themselves.
Okay.
Good.
That's all I have.
Anybody else got anything?
For staff, how much would have to be added onto the house to, kind of working the math backwards?
For some reason, I knew you were going to go there, and that's what I was working on. So Sean, with a 3.5 acre lot, there, how many X?
2 times.
2 times.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's at 1568?
The house is, well, yeah, that's what they're permitted now, so that's twice the existing house.
The existing house is 1,568 square feet.
No, that's
No,
two.
it's
Or,
the garage.
that's 2X,
Yeah,
excuse
yeah,
me.
yeah,
That's
sorry,
2X.
sorry.
So the existing house is
So it'd be half that.
784?
Yeah. So,
So they would need another 800 square feet. 900 square feet.
It says it's R.
Yeah.
All right, great. The existing, or the house would need to be almost double an additional 779 or 778.5 square feet. So he would have to pretty much almost double it in order to be in compliance with the ordinance. I don't know what his building plans entail in terms of the addition.
Was my question.
What was it?
How soon would he have to construct the addition to be in compliance?
60 days, isn't it?
I know that it's my understanding that it was reported that a building addition might be proposed. We didn't, to my knowledge, receive any details about what the timing or the total scale of the addition would be, and I think that would best be answered by the petitioner if you have specific questions on that.
But I don't think it has
But as
anything to
far
do
as
with the
the,
petition.
yeah, I was going to say, as far as what you're dealing with now, it's currently in violation, so any period of time between now and when it's built, it's existing as a violation of the zoning ordinance if there's no variance.
Okay. Does anybody else got any questions? Nope. No? I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, while the main structure is a quite small structure, which causes a little bit of hardship, I think, on a 4-acre lot, the two existing buildings and the addition of the third building do not appear to be unsightly, in my opinion. You guys can disagree with me on that, so I would make a motion to accept the variances as requested.
Second. Lance Roush. That was Joe Velman.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We have one member.
Mr. Hawley,
Yes.
Mr. Moffett,
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma,
Yes.
Mr. Roush,
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Velman,
Yes.
and Mr. Tavernier.
Yes, based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning and Appeals, after careful consideration, has granted your variance and will issue written findings of the facts. Thank you. Number 7.
Location is 52248 Laurel Road. Owner is Unity of Michiana Incorporated. Requested action, variance 1 from section 154.107C2 to allow a side north yard setback of 10 feet where 20 feet is required for a classroom trailer. Zoning R Single Family District County.
This is Sean Klein, Area Plan Commission staff. So the petitioner would like to move this mobile classroom trailer seen here to within 10 feet of the north property line. So in the R Single Family District, the setback for non-residential uses is 20 feet on the sides. Staff recommends denial of the variance. We feel that this 20-foot setback for non-residential uses is essential to protecting the quiet enjoyment of residential neighborhoods. And furthermore, there are other places on the property where the trailer can be placed and still comply with the 20-foot side setback. The petitioner is concerned about the ramp there lining up with the exit to the church, which is why they want to put it at the 10-foot setback. This would increase the distance between that exit to the ramp somewhat. It is all on paved surface, though, and it appears by looking at the trailer that if it were rotated the other direction, such that the entrances were to the north, they could still meet the setback and then have the ramp on the north side lining up with the exit to the church. So we feel that there's no practical difficulty in meeting that setback. So I just touched on the strict application, there not being practical difficulty. The approval would not likely be injurious to public health, safety, morals, or general welfare, but we do believe that the use and value of the area adjacent could be affected by having a non-residential use within 10 feet of a residential use to the north, and we feel that there is no practical difficulty in meeting the 20-foot side setback, and I would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Anybody got any questions?
I guess the question I have is if you're thinking rotating it wouldn't be an issue, but won't that kind of impact the parking and cause a hardship on the parking of taking out parking spaces?
It would certainly take up more parking spaces.
So how would they need to amend then to, not lose any parking?
I mean, I just don't think that that's adequate justification for not meeting a side setback. I mean, there's a lot of things need to be constructed where there's existing parking in order to meet development standards.
Anybody else? No? All right. Is the petitioner present? Yes, sir. Name, address, and, I almost said cell phone number. Name, address, and 10 minutes, please.
Timothy Simpson, 2516 Lakeshore Drive, Niles, Michigan. I would just note that we made this petition so that our handicap ramp will line up more in alignment with the existing ramp that is going into the main building. It would leave handicapped individuals traveling farther distance outside in unexposed, unprotected from weather areas. There is no restrooms in the classroom trailer. They were required to go into the main building to use the restroom facilities and attend the social functions inside the main building. It just makes it a whole lot easier if we can move that building over a little bit more to the property line so we get a better alignment to the existing ramp. As far as turning it around, you're absolutely right. If we turn it around so the doors are facing north, we lose a ton of parking, and that puts the building in an impractical area of the parking lot, almost to the center of the parking lot. So, if you have any questions.
Anybody got any questions?
I do. Is this, what's the intended use for the temporary structure? Is it
Sunday school.
just Sunday school? You're not starting a daily daycare or?
Not at this point that I'm
Okay.
aware of. I don't know exactly what.
Okay.
But it just makes more sense to have that handicap ramp lining up. You can see the existing ramp where the railing is on the main building. And if we move it over that 10 feet, it puts those ramps in near alignment with one another so that we can come right down the ramp out of the classroom and straight closer into the building.
So it's used just on Sundays?
Yes, it will be for right now.
And approximately how long of a period of time do you need the facility on Sunday?
How long do we need it?
Yes.
I believe, okay, the building was brought in on a temporary permit, a renewable annual permit, and unaware to me that was only good for 3 years. So now they're requiring us to put a permanent foundation footers underneath the building and get a permanent dwelling permit for the building.
So you
that's
have
why
heating
we're
and
mov-
air conditioning in the facility,
Yes,
but
Heating.
not restrooms?
no restrooms, which is typical of classroom trailers.
Mr. Holly, was your question how long it's used on the Sundays, though, the time frame?
How long of a period do you need to use it on Sunday?
How long are you occupying on Sundays?
Anywhere from 2 to 4 hours typically.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any plans to connect the two, since this is becoming a permanent structure, are there any plans to create some type of awning or walkway covering between the building and that new structure?
The facility operates on a limited budget. They're a small church. They don't have a lot of large funding. There is no plans for that at this time.
So unfortunately, we don't have a picture staring at the building, right? So that I can see.
If you can go back to the aerial, I can explain it a little better.
Well, I think so
Okay,
there's
it's not in
actually
that.
go one more, go back one more, Sean. Okay, the other way. There you go.
Oh,
So
here.
what I'm, so this is our only, where this ramp is and where these steps are?
Do we
This is
not?
your,
I'm sorry.
this is your only access into that building?
Yes. Yes, this right here is the only access to the main building. Right now, where that, you can see that this is more farther into the foreground. We'd like to push it back a little bit so that we get better access to the main building between the two buildings.
Like kind of where the
But I thought
dumpster
that
is.
I had submitted a photo, an aerial photo showing the old.
No, you did.
You did.
but I'm
It's right
looking-
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't,
Can you see?
that doesn't,
Right there, is the concrete pad. This is the proposed, and our ramp would come out this door and down much closer to alignment there. I'm sorry, I had that.
Yeah, you're right.
yeah, you're good. You're right.
Yep, you're
Okay.
right. Mhm.
I think you can see what we're proposing.
So my initial thought was spinning it around, right, and bringing it closer to the building, which would give you your setback that you're needing, and then you could extend your ramp. The problem, the difficulty that I see there, well, there is a difficulty, but there's not a difficulty, right? Because you could go back, Sean, please.
No.
One more. Okay, one more. Okay, so in theory, right, you could, and I don't have a laser, so you're just gonna have to try to follow me, right?
Sure.
In theory, you could bring this building up into the parking lot, which, yes, you are going to lose some of your parking, but I don't think you're going to lose as much as what everybody thinks you are, right? And that's just my opinion, but you could put the building here and come out of one of the doors directly to that existing ramp that is there, and then walk up to the steps that's on the left-hand side of the ramp. Is that how I see it? It's really hard to see the picture.
Yeah, I'm not sure. This is the existing ramp.
Right, so are there steps to the left of it?
This area here, you can see how much we're losing. For the doors to be turned around and facing north, this is south, that would be north. The building would be in this area here.
Where are the steps, though?
The steps,
Yeah. Do you only access the church through the ramp?
yes,
Oh, so there are no steps.
correct.
So everybody walks up the ramp then?
There is a railing, this is an awning, that's why you can't see it. There's a railing right here. There's an open end on this end, but it's not actually a sidewalk or a ramp. You just step into stones and down and off. There is a step there, but it's not an actual.
So there's no actual platform that you're landing that you're going into before you go into the door?
There's a porch there.
So there is a landing,
Yeah, there's a porch underneath.
but the only thing going to the landing, the only access to that landing is up a ramp or walking through stones or landscaping?
That is correct.
And that ramp is basically because of handicap needs.
We are required to have a ramp both on the building and on the classroom structure.
So in this picture, it looks like there's a sidewalk right here that walks up to the porch, and you're able to walk up onto that landing, right?
But to access the parking lot, you have to step across these stones right here. This railing right here
Okay,
is
well,
at the edge of the cement.
I understand, but concrete's easy. So, but there is accessibility from this side of the porch, right?
That is correct.
Okay. So in theory, we could spin it around. You're just gonna lose maybe 2 or 3 more parking spots than what you,
This structure is 24 feet wide, so if you spin it around so that these doors here are on the north side facing, you're gonna lose.
Why can't you face from the
If
church?
each parking spot is 8 feet, say they're 8 feet wide, you're gonna lose 3, 6, because they'll be adjacent. You're gonna lose a lot of parking, and you're gonna be more to the center of the parking lot, which is gonna render this area here almost useless.
understand. You guys got anything?
Do any of the trees need to be removed? I mean, it looks like a fairly heavily wooded tree line, but it also looks like they encroach
Encroach on,
where you would put that foundation.
the tree line is gonna be cleared out. They've already made financial arrangements to make that happen. They are pushing the trees back because the trees are overgrowing. You see how the asphalt is underneath the tree line right there?
Mhm.
They're gonna be pushing those trees back to make room for the structure.
What does that leave as a buffer between those classrooms and the adjacent property owner?
As you can see, the property lines runs through the trees. We're only gonna clean up our side of the property line, as we can only do anyway. And so there will be all those other remaining trees on the other side of the property line.
So you're asking for 10 feet where 20 feet is needed. And this is gonna be permanent, correct?
It has to meet permanent structure code, yes. It is, however, it is a mobile classroom.
Does the present parking facility handle the congregation now?
Yes, it does.
So you have enough parking right now?
Right now, it is adequate, yes.
But if they
We're not
make it a
looking to
permanent-
gain when we move it to the north, we're only gonna gain 2 more parking spots. That's not what we're needing. We're more concerned with our congregation and the capability of the disabled people to access both buildings.
How many disabled people do you have?
Right now, probably 3 elderly.
So it's used regularly, right?
Yeah.
Okay, not that that was a fact, I'm just,
Yeah, right now it's tore down. The building is dismantled and waiting for this variance to take place so that we can put it back up on its.
I see the looks that I'm getting. It's just a question. Okay, I'm good. Anybody else got anything?
For staff, if they make this a permanent structure, are they in compliance for parking requirements?
It's not going to increase the demand or the need for parking enough to trigger new parking requirements. So
But if they lose spaces,
Okay, but doesn't it actually have to be a dwelling, and since it's not doesn't have a bathroom, does it actually count? It's just an outbuilding, right?
it's still square footage that would count towards required parking.
Okay. For staff? Anything for the petitioner? All right, thanks, sir. All right, anybody else got any questions? Abby's getting ready to answer.
Oh, you had asked, and I feel compelled to tell you. It is 4 spaces per every 1,000 square feet of gross floor area of buildings. As Sean said previously, it's just square footage. So I don't know what the existing structure is. The 24 by 40, right?
Mm-hmm.
960. 4 spaces. 4 additional spaces for that temporary going to be permanent structure, Dottie. And then whatever would be required based on the square footage of the existing building. I think I counted 11, 11, 8, and 9 approximately from the aerial. 39 spaces. So likely sufficient parking.
they have sufficient, if they rotate and all that, they would still be in compliant?
I'd have to look at the site in greater detail.
Yeah, the addition definitely wouldn't trigger any additional parking because it doesn't increase demand by more than 25%, so.
Any questions? Good?
Sure.
Good?
Are we finished with?
No.
Okay.
All right. Is there anybody that would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. See none. Any on Zoom? No? Is there anybody that would like to speak against, that was me, this petition? Please step forward. See none. Any on Zoom? See none. Public portion is now closed. Anybody else got any questions? Or I'll take a motion.
Would it be appropriate, staff, to think in terms of screening? I know it's all zone residential, but it's kind of like a mixed-use situation, right?
Let me get to the landscape regulations, because we do have type 1, type 2, and then we have non-residential. I just want to see exactly what the language says. So we have landscaping requirements. We have zoning of subject property and zoning of adjacent property. And then we do have a section, I thought we had some language in the ordinance about non-residential uses within residential districts, but that's just a special use.
We do not, yeah. Since religious uses aren't special uses, no landscaping would be required between the properties.
Okay, required, but
You could make it required.
we could make it a condition, couldn't we?
A special use adjacent to a residential would require open landscaping. And I don't know that that is the full buffer that you probably have in mind.
No, I think type 2 is what I'm
Yeah.
thinking of.
Does say special use or non-residential.
Yeah, it's not special use. You can make that a condition.
I didn't go out there. Did you guys, have you guys been there?
Yeah.
Is that tree line fairly,
Well, it's still there now, so, but yes.
Extensive.
Problem is, tree lines go away.
It's pretty thick.
that's it?
Yeah.
I'm just, you know where I'm going.
The neighbors seemed they didn't care because they were told about it.
Right. Right.
They do have a budget they're gonna paint it, put a new roof on
All
it.
right, which,
All right, Mr. Chairman, well, I think I got the gist of where you're trying to move things to and make it a little bit more in line with what they're looking for. In my mind, I just couldn't get there to where it would be more beneficial, or, I mean, where it wouldn't be as impactful negatively to them than it would be to push, in this case, different than the one previously, pushing it to the edge and getting it away from the building to make it line up makes sense to me. So I would make a motion to approve the variance as requested. It seems like the best use of where they need, they've already had existing structure, they're only moving the structure a few feet over, it appears, so it just makes sense.
Donnie Ritzman, I'll second.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Vellman?
Yes.
And Mr. Tavernier?
yes. Based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning and Appeals, after careful consideration, grants your variance and will issue written findings of the facts. Thanks, sir.
Somebody decided.
Number 8, location is 19895 Sarah Street. Owner is Carlos and Michelle Luna. Requested action, variance 1 from section 154.107C2 to allow a side west yard setback of 5 feet where 8 feet is required for an addition to a single-family dwelling. Zoning is R Single Family District County.
So Sean Klein, Area Plan Commission staff. So the petitioner would like to make an addition on the west side of the existing house. This would be within 5 feet of the property line, not the 8 feet that is required by the zoning ordinance. Something important to keep in mind with this particular property, it's at exactly 12,000 square feet. If it was just 1 square foot less than that, only 6 foot side yard setbacks would be required. So, I mean, technically, it requires an 8-foot side setback, but it's not really all that different than conditions that get a 6-foot side setback by right. That just happens to be where the line is drawn. Staff recommends approval of the variance, one, because it's really not that much of a departure from the setback that would be required were this just slightly smaller. And two, it's not really going to have much of an adverse impact on that property to the west. It's a smaller lot of record, but without sewer service at 4,000 square feet, it's never really going to be developed on its own. So it's probably just going to serve as additional yard space for that house that is further to the west there, and that those are under single ownership now. Additionally, the way that the garage is configured and the fact that the septic is in the front, they really don't have any other feasible options of expanding the house out. They could get closer to the street. There's some mature trees there that would have to come out. Really, the only reasonable way to expand would be towards that west property line. Turning to the state law criteria, staff finds that the approval will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. We also find that the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because once again, that lot to the west cannot be developed. And there are numerous other properties within this old subdivision that are not meeting side setback requirements currently. And turning to the final criteria, we find that there are practical difficulties. The configuration of the garage doors, the mature trees on the property, and the septic system in the front yard don't really allow any other expansion of the house. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Is the petitioner present? Name, address, and 10 minutes, please.
Hi, Carlos Luna, 19895 Sarah Street. The reason we applied for that, he kind of hit on all of them. We just don't have any other practical place to put it. Where he said towards the street on the east side, our air conditioning's there, there's our service, electrical service comes in there, plus the trees. The garage takes up all the rest, or the driveway takes the rest of that space. The septic's in the front, and really that's our only option is on the west side. And that was what we were looking to do, just some additions for our kids that are getting older.
Okay. You guys got any questions?
How are you changing the roof line? If you're adding onto the back side of that building, are you going to re-rafter it? Are you going to extend rafters out? How are you going to make the roof line look right?
Yeah, so basically, we're just gonna bring it out and then redo, add the addition to it. So not re-rafter the whole thing, just add to it.
Add to it.
A tree fell on the back side of it, so it all needs redone anyway. So it just works out.
Will you be retaining the shed that sits in front of the garage currently as well too?
Yeah, that's all staying. So the access to that back room is going to be end up being through the garage. So we're gonna do a hallway through the garage.
Oh, so it's going to be living quarters, not addition to the garage. I guess maybe I'm
No. Yeah, it's going to be rooms.
Oh, okay.
Bedrooms.
Well, I didn't realize that. I thought it was just adding square footage to the garage. You're actually adding living space to the house on the back side of the garage.
Yeah, we don't have any other place to put bedrooms. Right
Yeah, I saw that. I just thought you wanted more space for toys like most people do.
No.
So, okay. That's helpful. I did not get living space out of that.
Anybody else?
Well, I didn't read all the way through.
No?
Yeah.
Thanks, sir.
All right, thanks.
We'll open it up to the public. Is there anybody that would like to speak for this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? Nope. Is there anybody that would like to speak against this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? Seeing none, public portion is now closed. You guys got anything else? Or I'll take a motion.
No, sir, since, if I would have read the rest of the petitioner's petition, I would have known that it was a living space. Thank you, Mr. Roush, for pointing that out to me. I make a motion to approve the variance as requested. I think it's a good application for the rest of this lot.
Donnie Ritzma, and I will second.
Mr. Hawley,
Yes.
Mr. Moffett,
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma,
Yes.
Mr. Roush,
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Velman,
Yes.
and Mr. Tavernier.
Yes, based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning and Appeals, after careful consideration, grants your variance and will issue written findings of the facts. Thank you. Number 2?
All right, gentlemen, I was able to reach the petitioner's representative, or the petitioner for number 2, and they are not able to be on today.
I make a motion, we table it to the August meeting.
Bob Hawley, second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
And I have reached the petitioner for number 3, and that gentleman has joined via Zoom.
All right.
Okay.
So, Brandy, does
petition
Morgan
number
need
3.
to reread the petition into the record?
For Vistula.
Correct.
Yes, sir. Oh, sorry, yes, number 3, Vistula.
Location is 10401 Vistula Road. Owner is Rebecca and Joseph Crimmins. The requested action is variance 1 from section 154.107C2 to allow a side east yard setback of 4 feet where a minimum of 6 feet is required, and variance 2 from section 154.107C1 to allow a front yard setback of 18 feet where a minimum of 35 feet is required. Zoning is R Single Family District County.
I just motioned that I didn't think that Kylie needed to do the full staff report for you again, unless you all would like to hear it a second time.
I don't need it.
I think she covered it pretty well the first time.
Yeah,
Great.
she did a beautiful
Okay.
job.
The petitioner on Zoom, correct?
Joseph, are you able to unmute yourself? 317, Morgan.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes, very faint.
Barely.
Okay.
Louder?
Sorry, is that any better?
Yeah.
You can.
Yes.
Okay.
Name and address, please, and then you got 10 minutes.
Joe Crimmins, 10401 Vistula Road. I'm repetitioning for those 2 variances that were approved approximately 4.5 years ago. My dad and I were going to build that barn, and he got sick, and so I just never went through with it because I took over the family business, and so I'm just trying to gain more storage for me and my wife as we are pregnant and expecting in January of 23. So more than ever, we need a little more space in the 850 square foot cottage that we're in. So I'm just looking for garage space for our cars and storage space for our family.
Okay. You guys got any questions? No? All right, thanks, sir. Open it up to the public. Is there anybody that would like to speak in favor of the petition? Please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? Seeing none. Is there anybody that would like to speak against this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? Seeing none. The petition, or the public portion is now closed. You guys got any questions?
Bob Hawley, I'll make a motion to approve the the variance is requested for the property at 10401 Vistula Road, Osceola, Indiana.
Bob, you said both variances?
Yes.
Donnie Ritzman, I'll second.
Mr. Hawley,
Yes.
Mr. Moffett,
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma,
Yes.
Mr. Roush,
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Vellman,
Yes.
and Mr. Tavernier.
Yes, based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, grants variance 1 and variance 2, and will issue written findings of the facts. Thank you, sir. Okay. Now we're on to findings of the facts, correct?
Findings of the facts. Bob Hawley will make a motion to accept the findings of the facts for the Wednesday, June 9th, 2022 Area Board of Zoning Appeals meeting.
Second.
June 8th.
June 8th, Bob.
Oh, June 8th, did I say?
You said 9th.
9th, I'm sorry. Thank you.
It says Wednesday, though, right?
I would see if you're.
It does say
paying
Wednesday.
Great.
All right, motion and a second, all in favor?
attention.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Minutes, right? Where'd they go?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the Wednesday, June 8th, 2022 minutes as written.
Donnie Ritzman, I'll second.
Now, remember I brought to your attention.
Oh, yes, I apologize. Thank you, Bob. Lance was shown as not in attendance in the minutes at the meeting, and I've already asked Morgan to make that correction. And the copy that Donnie and I will sign today has Lance. Sorry, we cut you out.
Good catch, Bob.
What? Where at?
So Brandy, it would just be as amended, right? Or as corrected.
What did I miss on?
They said I wasn't recorded as being.
Members present included Bob Hawley, Donnie, Sid, DJ Joe,
Oh,
Jim.
you're not listed anywhere.
But Sid was the one that kept not getting asked to vote.
Jim
Yeah,
was the
it's
only
okay.
one totally absent.
You're killing it, other than that.
Thanks.
Okay, so we had a motion and a second as
Corrected.
corrected
That's corrected.
on the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. I got a question. I forgot what it was. Oh, I know what the question is. He got the variance for the building for number 6. Are we still recording? I don't think we need to be recording. Or no, because we haven't adjourned.
adjourned.
All right. Anybody want to make a motion?
I make a motion we adjourn.
talk about business, you gotta keep it on.
Oh. Okay.
What about you, Abby? Do you need something?
Do I have any other business?
Yeah, do you have anything you want to
Oh,
say?
gee, let me think. Well, I just want to say thanks to Morgan for filling in for us while Shelley was on medical leave.
Sure,
She's
Shelley's still on.
on Zoom, and
Hi,
she comes
Shelley.
back tomorrow. And just, thank you all. I'm continually impressed by the motions you make and how you consider the petitions. I feel like we really made Brandy earn her keep today. Looking at the statute on enforceability of commitments and, yeah, thank you.
It's
I
not a
just,
pretty face, that's it.
fantastic questions. Thank you all. On landscaping, on parking requirements. Great
All
job.
right, so question for 6 then, since we got to stay on here for
Uh-huh.
this. When he does his addition, if he does his addition, the variance goes away, correct? And he's no longer allowed that extra square footage to a further building, correct?
Yeah, because we allowed the 3,156 square feet total.
Okay,
Not a percentage.
Not a, yeah. He's still gonna be allowed twice what he's gonna build, though. So if he
Yeah.
had.
right, but what I'm saying is if he adds 2,000 square feet to his house, right? That supersedes that 700 and some square feet that he needed. Is he then,
Technically speaking, I think that It would if it were ever to come up in the future, because the material conditions on the property would have changed so significantly. That specific scenario involving changes like that does not come up very often in the case law, so I can't say for 100% sure how it would get treated in the courts, because usually it's like, I don't know, something bizarre happened to the land and changed what it looks like. But since this is all related to the actual size of the building, I think probably a court would rule the way you're describing, if it ever came up.
That he would keep it.
That it would go away,
Oh, that
because
he
it
would
was
lose
no
it.
longer.
Yeah, that's
the-
what I'm
The
asking.
material conditions of the property would have changed such that it would no longer be necessary or appropriate. That would be something that would have to get dealt with probably through court if it ever actually came up.
Right, okay.
If,
Just double
if,
checking.
if he adds enough to his building that his allowed amount were to exceed the 3,000 whatever that was approved, I think it would probably come out the way you were describing, but
All right.
it's not something I can say for 100% sure, because I don't think that specific scenario has ever come up in court before.
Got it. All right, anybody else got anything? Motion to adjourn? Somebody, please?
Bob Hawley makes a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Lance Roush, second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thanks, guys. You two aren't allowed to sit next to
We
each other
weren't laughing
anymore.
at you.